Welcome to Newman Night, where we build authentic relationships and joyfully seek the truth. Right? So it's kind of like one way I think about it is we want our knowledge of faith to grow to a college level, as well as build community, meet new people, build relationships, all that kind of stuff. So I'm grateful to our speaker tonight who drove up from Phoenix. I've been able to have him come every year for the last several years. He studied back east. His undergrad was like mathematics and computer science. He got a master's in mathematics. And your thesis was on the mathematics of juggling. Yes. So if you have any math questions later, you can come up and ask him. I don't know if they'll help you with your homework, but he just recently published his first book on mathematics and things that everyone should know. He's the father of 8 children, one of which just got married this fall. So pretty exciting. Expecting his first grandchild very soon. So pretty right now he's the chief academic officer for Great Hearts. Maybe some of you went to Great Hearts, and maybe one day you might teach in Great Hearts. So he knows a lot about that, a lot about education, philosophy, and faith. Please help me welcome Jake Tawney.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, Jesus, Lord of our lives, Holy Spirit of love, we ask you to help us to understand what it means to be human, what it means to be Catholic, what it means to give ourselves over to you, our Creator, to work and to strive and to toil for the holiness that is required of us so that we can fulfill who we are supposed to be in this world and, God willing, in the next. We ask this through the intercession of our Blessed Mother as we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay. How are we doing? Good? Okay. Father assured me that the most prudent thing to do tonight is to give a 2.5-hour lecture and then to do some math. I'm good? No. I'm kidding. My name is Jake Tawney. As Father explained, I'm from down in Phoenix, work for Great Hearts Academies. I do have a background in math and computer science. Coming here to NAU to speak to all of you is one of the highlights of my entire year. I love the drive up here. I love being here with all of you. I love listening to myself talk. It's really great. So what I'd like to do tonight, though, is, did we advertise the topic? Yes. Okay, so you all know we're talking about AI, right? So I had ChatGPT write this. So we're going to see how, that's too easy of a joke, isn't it? Yeah. No, so what I'd like to do tonight actually is to just admit that this is the beginning of a conversation. Right? All of this stuff is relatively new, and I think all of us need to give some really serious thought to it. And I don't claim in any least that I have all the answers for it. I do think I have some good questions. I think I have some good first principles. And so I'd like to kind of do that, right? What I'd like to do is really to only talk for about, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 minutes. And as Peter Kreeft used to say, we will suffer through the purgatory of the lecture so that we can get to the paradise of listening to the more interesting part of this, which is your comments and your questions. And we'll just continue that conversation for a little bit longer. Sound good? So in the time that I have, what I'd like to do is to really just outline, again, just a few first principles, things that I think are true. I would like to maybe state a conclusion that I think follows from some of those first principles here and there. But then I'd really like to get on to the questions that you have. So before we get into sort of the meat of it, I do think it's important to have a couple like definitions and some sort of starting points here. So when I say that I want to talk about AI tonight, I want to just define what I mean by that right now. This is not an exhaustive definition of AI. Right now, what I want to talk about is the large language models that are generative and that are interactive. So effectively, we're talking about what most people are thinking about when they hear the term AI now, which is ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or any one of the other ones that are out there, right? That's the kind of thing I want to talk about. I do want to admit, and I think it's important for all of us to know, that AI is much bigger than that. Right? There are AI algorithms that are being used in all kinds of things, from self-driving cars to algorithms that are happening in your cell phones right now. And those have something to do with the large language models, but they're not the same, and they're not usually what most of us think of, right? So I'm not going to talk about those things. As much as I'd love to, and maybe we can get into that in the Q&A if you want, like what are the advances, what are the things I'm worried about, why do I think the world's going to end, things like that. Boring stuff, right? But what I'd like to do is just focus on the thing that's of most interest to a lot of us, which is these generative, interactive large language models. So, but I also don't want to overly narrow it. I really do want to talk about those ones that are interactive. I have less interest in the fact that Google, when you do a search, gives you an AI summary now. Like, we can talk about that, but that's just kind of boring. It's like one tiny little aspect of these AI algorithms, right? So I want to talk effectively. You can think about it as ChatGPT, or pick your favorite one. So that's where we're going to focus just tonight, because we don't have a ton of time. Number two, I'd like to just admit from the beginning that if we're trying to explore whether there is some good that can come from a single limited use of these things, like, I concede the point. I know people who have no programming background and have used ChatGPT to write a program to do something useful for them. So check, that seems like a good thing. I know somebody who used ChatGPT, no joke, to someone coming into the church to curate a reading list for them of things that are aligned to the Catholic faith, of interest by way of the topic to this person, and of things that they think should be influential in their formation coming into the church. So that seems like a good use, so check. Right? Certainly I know people who've taken their writing and fed it into ChatGPT and gotten something back that's substantially better than what you put in. And you would say, yeah, that's a good. So again, check. I'm so, in some ways, just not interested in the short-term, one-off goods that can come from that. I'm not going to argue against that, right? I am much more interested in things beyond the single use, beyond the short term. I'm much more interested in the inherent formation that might come for an individual or a society that starts to begin to use these things. And that's where all of my questions are. Right? So it's not about the single use, I can get this good thing right now out of it. I admit those things are possible. Right? And then finally, I hope, like with this group, it just goes without saying, but it probably should be said, like, look, my worldview, everything that I'm going to say comes from the fact that I'm a faithful yet sinful Catholic man who's trying to understand what it means to be human. And so everything I say comes from a Catholic worldview of what it means to be human, understanding that I and you all are made in the image and likeness of God, that we are a body-soul unity, and that is called to communion with other body-soul unities, including Jesus. Right? So everything that I have to say comes from that point. So in other words, what it means to be human as a body-soul unity means that both of those things matter. It matters the things that are in our soul, our rationality, our passions, our will to do things. All of those are an integral part of what makes us human, but we're also not ghosts in a machine, right? That our matter matters. So everything that I have to say comes from that perspective. We are a body-soul unity called to communion with other body-soul unities, and one of those, the most important of those body-soul unities, is Jesus Christ, our Creator. Got it? Good? Okay. I have two parts. So I have no creative titles for these parts. One of them we're going to call Technology Forms Us. And the other one we're going to call Technology Replaces What It Automates. Those are my subtitles. They're boring. It's okay, right? Okay, so let's start over here. So one of my basic principles I've ripped off from an author named Neil Postman, who says that all technology forms us not by its misuse, but by its mere use. And I think that's really important for all of us as human beings to recognize. Now, when I use the word technology, I don't just mean electronics, right? I mean any kind of advancement in technology, whether it's the hammer or the cell phone. The use of any technology will form us, not by its misuse, as if to say, look, technology is neutral. It can be used for good or for bad. That's true, not denying that. That's true, but that just seems really obvious, right? Sort of banal, not worth giving a talk about. What seems less obvious is the fact that technology, no matter how it's used, will form us by its nature. So think here of the watch. The watch did not give us the ability to keep time so much as it turned us into a time-keeping people. So yeah, it gave us the ability to keep time, but we had that ability before. What's unique about the watch is its precision down to the second, its wearability, so that all of a sudden, everybody can agree on what time it is, so that meetings no longer start a little after noon. They start at 12:15. And 12:16 is now late. And so the mere advent of the clock and eventually the watch has formed us. It's changed the way that we interact with time. This is true of any technology. Think of the car, right? The car did not give us the ability to travel long distances so much as it gave us the ability to move long distances away and then bridge them. Because if we think that 2 hours up here about? If we think a 2-hour drive is the same as a 2-hour walk, we're wrong. A 2-hour walk, you're still in the same general vicinity with largely the same general climate. A 2-hour drive, I can assure you, as I left my coat in the car when I walked in downtown Flag, this is not the same climate as we got down in Phoenix. Right? The car has changed things. Or think of it this way. Where else in our world are you in such close proximity to another human being, yet in your own little world? And that's what happens when we drive. So again, now, hear me, I'm not saying this is bad. This is not what I'm here to say, right? What I'm here to say is the use of it forms us. Let's take one more example of a technology that I think is just fundamentally good in what it did and how it changed the way that we think. And here I think of like the printing press. What an absolute marvel of engineering. Now, to be fair, some of the ancients would say, no, that's actually bad, because the minute you're writing words down, we lose our memory. That's a great conversation. We should have that later. But there's no doubt that the printing press changed the way we think. It changed the way we learn. It changed the way we codify stuff. It changed the whole way that we communicate, right? All technology does this. And from there, we can go to the television, which formed us into an entertainment people. We can go to the internet, to social media, to the cell phone. And the reality is, again, what I'm not claiming is that these technologies, any of them, are inherently evil. That's not what I'm here to say. But I am here to say that they are inherently formative no matter how you use them. I think we all get that when it comes to something like the phones, right? That the more you communicate on the phone, the more it shapes the way that you communicate. It changes the way that you see things. It changes the way that you interact with people, right? And so the question for AI, and again, I'm going to use that word just as a reminder, what I'm talking about just tonight is sort of the ChatGPT version of AI, the interactive, generative large language models, right? The question then is, how do they form us? In using ChatGPT to do whatever, what is the formation? Because it's there. And I think that's the first thing we need to be aware of. And so let me offer just a few different things that I think makes AI, in this limited definition I'm using, distinctive. One is, and I'm happy to be challenged on this. Again, this is what the Q&A is going to be for. One thing that makes it distinctive is that I think it's the first technology that didn't change the way that we communicate with other people. It actually becomes the thing that we communicate with. So it's not providing a tool for me to have a conversation with you, as a phone does, or a cell phone, a texting does, or Twitter does, right? Instead, we are communicating with it. That's where, by the way, it's important that we're understanding that tonight I'm talking about ChatGPT. Because if you're talking about Google using AI to give you a summary search result, you're not interacting with that. Again, interesting topic. We can talk about that too. But tonight I'm talking about the ones that are, by their nature, interactive. So I think what has happened is that we're now finding ourselves communicating with ChatGPT, with this AI. Second, and I'll give a caveat to this, at least for now, what makes this distinctive, not from all technologies, but from some, is that this exists in the digital world, right? I say for now because I certainly can conceive of a future where we have some robot cyborg who's communicating with us. And so at least there's something made of matter there. But even then, that thing won't be human, right? And so even then, this large language model concept, whether it's in ChatGPT right now or whether it's in some future robotic cyborg, still is taking the place of the other human, right? These technologies are doing the communication. They're taking that human-to-human communication and they're replacing one half of it, right? And I think we just need to recognize that. We are, in fact, communicating with it. So let me just give you my experience with this, right? As I first started using it, I decided to see just how good this was. Like, I have a computer science background, and people said, like, you have no idea how good this thing is. It can start writing code. You really should try this out. So I jumped online, and I'm like, can you write me an executable, when I double click it, an executable game that models Mario Kart? And so then I played with it, and it was super interesting because it gives it back almost immediately, and almost immediately it doesn't work. But you say it doesn't work, it says, okay, what's the error? You start copying and pasting, it starts to work through it with you, right? That's not interesting. I mean, maybe you find that interesting. You're like, yay, Mario Kart, right? That's not interesting. What's interesting to me is I found that within minutes, I was correcting my spelling before hitting enter. Why would I care? Like, I don't know how you are, but like when I go to Google, I don't care about the spelling. Like I just am typing a quick search, hitting enter, because I'm going to presume Google knows what I'm talking about, is going to correct that spelling and give me the right search results. But I found that I started caring about how I was communicating. In fact, as I paused, I realized in the last 3 prompts that I gave it, I used the word please. And one time I said, thank you. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm weird. Like, maybe you're like, dude, I've never done that. Or maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's all of a sudden, but I think whether you think I'm weird for saying please and thank you, well, first of all, I am weird, so I get that. But whether you think I'm weird for that reason, right, I think all of us have had the experience where we are interacting with it in a very different way than we're interacting with it through a search engine. And this is one of my responses to people who say, look, ChatGPT and these LLMs is just a glorified search engine. It's not. It's fundamentally different. I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that it's generative. It's not searching, it's generating content. But also it is interactive. And by it being interactive, it changes the way that we communicate. And look, I think this is actually really important because as human beings, we learn to communicate by being around others and absorbing their communication habits. Like, I'm notorious for like being an imitator. If I'm around, I was just in North Carolina. If I'm, who was the fired coach of LSU? Oh, come on. Was it Brian Kelly? Yeah, Brian Kelly. You know, he had this famous moment where he was down there first in front of them and he lapsed into like a really bad Cajun accent. Like, dude, that would be me. Like, I can tell you, I was just down in North Carolina, and after about 10 minutes at the dinner table with people, I started having a Southern drawl. Right? So we learn to communicate by imitating. There's a reason why my kiddo, Jude, who's a sophomore at Benedictine, I hear there's a Benedictine grad here. Hey, there we go. Go Ravens. You know, my kiddo, Jude, is notorious where people are around him like, oh my gosh, I hear Jake. I hear your dad in you. Like, that's not amazing. That's just common sense. We imitate and learn to communicate by people around us because learning language is natural. It's very different than reading, by the way. Now I'm like dorking out on education stuff, right? Reading needs to be taught. Learning to speak, you absorb by people around you. You learn language naturally. So we have to understand that if we are going to communicate with something like Grok or ChatGPT, we're going to end up learning how to communicate by that interaction. Again, not here right now to say, oh, that's so awful. Just here to make you aware. We are going to be formed insofar as we interact with it because that is how language works, right? And then finally, the thing that I think is really critical to recognize about the uniqueness of these large language models is that they are not like our first encounter with AI. People don't usually think about it this way, but our first encounter with AI was social media. Right? And I don't mean, you're like, what do you mean that's AI? Like, I communicate with my friends through social media. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, look, I'm old, so I know words like Facebook, right? But whatever it is, right? Whatever the social media is, there's a feed that's there, right? There are AI algorithms behind the scenes telling you what you should see. And do you know what those are optimized for? I mean, there's a whole documentary done on this. Does anybody know what social media, those algorithms are literally optimized for? It's attention. It's to keep you engaged. And this is where things like infinite scrolling come from. It's where the like buttons come from. It's on YouTube where you might like this or watch this next comes from. But all of the algorithms are literally optimized to keep you engaged for the most amount of time. That is not what the new round of AI is optimized for. The new round, the ChatGPT round, is optimized for persuasion. Its whole goal is to get you to agree. Now, I don't mean, so I use those phrase get you as if I think they're already conscious, right? They're not going to be conscious, right? That we can have a whole nother talk on my proofs for why AI will never be conscious. That's fine, right? But I do mean that there's this way in which the whole goal is to persuade you that the thing coming out is real, right? Not by its own will, right? And in fact, I think there's probably a more accurate way of saying this. It's not just that the algorithms are optimized for persuasion. It's actually that the whole interaction process is. I mean, it says something about what it means to be human, right? I mean, again, I almost have to stop myself when I'm on ChatGPT. I'm trying to look for an answer, and I realize the thing it gave me is not quite right. So I'll say, hey, this part doesn't seem right, and then it will be very polite. You know, ChatGPT is actually very polite. It's like, I'm so sorry. You are correct, and it's very complimentary too, and very wise. And in noting the technical error in that last sentence, let me revise this for you. Does that seem better? And at some point, I become satisfied. And yet I still have no idea whether that thing is true. Like, I just accepted it. Like, I'm engaged in this interaction with ChatGPT to almost because I want to be persuaded. This is not entirely new. I mean, we've all had the phenomenon where we're trying to research like a controversial position, and so we try to Google this, and there's 9 different hits that disagree with you, and we go to the one that does. We're trying to find that one that persuades us of the thing we already believe, right? And again, this is not terrible. I'm not saying this is bad, but I am saying there's something here worth thinking about. These algorithms and our interaction with them, that whole process is optimized for persuasion. This comes from a pair of guys who've been speaking about this, Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin, who used to be in the industry. I think it was Google. I might be wrong about that. I'll ask ChatGPT later. But they've made this point, right? So they know this. They know it's optimized for persuasion. And they said, look, like if you really wanted to send a country into just absolute chaos, what you really should do is to, during an election, get the 2 candidates and get avatars of them, ship them out to every person in the country so that they can use them to say anything they want and then post the videos. And y'all, we're there. And the whole goal of that exercise will be to make a convincing avatar. It's to persuade you of something, right? You don't have any more confidence in the stuff coming out of ChatGPT than you would in one random website. You might have less confidence, but you'll start to feel like it's real, like it's more accurate. But these things are not optimized for truth. They're optimized to convince you that it's true. And again, I know when I say that, it sounds like it's an insidious act of will on the part of the algorithm. The algorithm has no will. I'm saying we are almost allowing that because of how we are as human beings, right? And so that's the way that all of this, remember in this side of the talk, it's about technology forming us, right? I'm not giving any answers yet, right? I'm not giving you massive conclusions, but I am saying I think the first step is to recognize there is an inherent formation that comes from interacting and using this, and that formation will happen over time, right? The more we use it, the more we will be formed by it. The more we will come to understand this is what language looks like. This is what we expect out of our communication. And we will start to believe the things that happen. The things that come out of it, the results that come out of it. And that, to me, does seem at least problematic if we're unaware of it. Okay, so that's one side of it. The second side of it, a little bit shorter here, and then we'll get to the questions. I have this basic principle that all technology will replace what it automates. Like, that's principle number one. Principle number two is that large language models and AI automate higher level thinking. That's what they're designed to do. Principle number three is that higher level thinking is an integral part of what it means to be human. It's a really important part of that intellect part of the soul, right? And so let me just kind of go back through those again, because if that's true, if tech replaces what it automates, if large language models and AI automate higher level thinking, and if higher level thinking is central to what it means to be human, the logical conclusion is that over time, the use of AI for an individual will start to make us less human. It will start to automate something in us that is integral to what it means to be human. So why do I think principle number one? A good example here is the nail gun. Anybody do any kind of construction and use an automatic nail gun? Yeah, super cool, right? Like, have you ever seen the old guys do this? Okay, so this like goes back to my grandparents. Before there were pneumatic nail guns. And they had to do these by hand. And do you know what this looked like? Boom, boom, pa, boom, boom, pa. It was like 2 sets, and they drilled the thing in. It's unreal to watch. No one can do that anymore. Unless you've like just rejected the automatic nail gun and say, no, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. Again, this is not a bad thing. I'm not saying you should never be using an automatic nail gun. No, I think you probably should. It makes construction a lot easier and a lot faster. But I am saying it has replaced what it automates. It automated the tapping of the nails, and it has now replaced that, and human beings cannot do that anymore. Like almost across the board, they cannot do that anymore. Now, thankfully, I don't think that pounding a nail in fast is central to what it means to be a human being. Now, we probably should have some conversations about the crafts and building, and I think some of that is central to what it means to be a human being. But I don't think the advent of the nail gun has damaged our humanity, or at least all that much, right? So technology will replace what it automates. Principle number two is that AI and large language models are seeking to automate higher level thinking. I'm happy to have somebody challenge that in the Q&A, but that just seems obvious to me. When you interact with ChatGPT, it is trying to do the higher level thinking for you. Now you might say, and I've had some people say this to me, I think it's a fair point, doesn't it automate the higher level thinking so that we can do even higher level thinking, right? And I think there's a couple problems with that objection. So one is, thinking is a continuum. Right? And so where that division is a really hard thing, and we should be very careful with the idea of skipping, especially in the act of education, right? I mean, if this were the case, we should never teach any young kid about any basic math facts, because we're just going to automate those much later down the road, right? But what we know is that when we don't do that, it's substantially problematic to get them to do the higher level things. So I think it's an illusion to think that if we automate this, we'll automatically be prepared to do even higher level thinking. Right? Another example of this is that writing structures thought. So yeah, look, I can get a draft essay that might be even better than what I can write from ChatGPT, and you can say, look, this is really good, and then I can use my critical thinking to go and make it even better. But writing structures thought. So over time, if you're only revising, and if you are not actually writing, it will dull your skills at writing, and therefore dull your skills at thinking. So I think it just seems pretty obvious to me that these AI algorithms, these ChatGPT and the others, are trying to automate higher level thought, right? And then the third principle is that higher level thought is something integral to what it means to be human. And again, I kind of defended that at the beginning. We're a body-soul unity. And part of the soul, right, in addition to the will and the passions and all of this, part of the soul is that rational thinking. It's like literally what separates us from the other animals, right? There's several things that separate us from the other animals. The fact that our soul is eternal, right? But we are, the distinction that philosophers of old have made between us and the other animals is that we're the rational ones. Right? And so this seems to me these are pretty clear first principles. And so if this is true, that tech automates what it, or that replaces what it automates, if it's true that AI seeks to automate higher level thinking, and if it's true that higher level thinking is integral to what it means to be human, we might be in trouble. Because the continued use of this might start to actually replace something in us that is integral to being human. And so So we might say, okay, is this really true? How do we know this? And I would point to a couple different examples that we've already seen this with, right? One is something like calculators. Now look, I'm a math guy. Right? This is what I taught for years. Use calculators in class. I'm not here to say you shouldn't use calculators, right? But I am here to say that the argument for calculators was always, if you can do this stuff and not worry about it, then we can get kids to access higher level things. Like that was always the promise of it, right? My dad taught math before I did, and he still to this day tells me, back when I taught logarithms, we spent 4 weeks on the properties of logs because we had to calculate everything by hand. And now you all only need to spend like a week on it. And the promise is that because you only need to spend a week on it, you can do even higher level stuff. And my question is, has it worked? Have we all gotten better mathematically because of calculators? So I went to a small school just outside of Columbus in Ohio for college. It was a good school. It's not a great school, but it was a pretty good school. But when I went there, like 20 billion years ago, the lowest level math class they offered was calculus. And everyone had to take a math class. It was part of your general ed requirements. And the expectation was, this is college, calculus. We now know that Harvard University is offering remedial algebra classes. So it seems to me the culture has not gotten better at math. Now, am I saying that's the calculator's fault? Am I drawing a short, straight line between calculator use and that? No. There's a lot of factors there. But I am saying it didn't live up to its promise. The internet. The whole promise of the internet is that we have like all of human knowledge at the touch of a button for everybody. I don't have to go to the library and check out a book and try to find the answer. I can now Google it. I can now find, this is God telling me my time's up. I can now Google it. What has happened now is it's turned us into a culture that thinks that problem solving is looking an answer up in a database. We no longer think about meaning, about the actual solving of the problem. What we now think about is looking it up, right? Or let me just give one more, even something as silly as mapping software. The fact that we have maps on our phone have changed our ability to think about space. Like fundamentally changed me. Right? I mean, I've been here 4 times from downtown Flag. I still got out a dang phone to figure out where this place was. It has changed us. That's all I'm saying. I'm not even putting a judgment on this, right? I think we should make conclusions. We should think about this seriously. But I am saying it's an illusion to think that it won't change us. Technology will replace what it automates. And I want to pair that again with principle number 2. AI seeks to automate higher level thinking. Okay, so let's wrap it up. So that was all like doom and gloom. What are we to do? What's the answer? So I should leave you with something, right? Something to make you feel like, yeah, being human's pretty good. And I think that's a pretty good place to start. I think what we do is to just be more human. That seems important. And what it means to be human is to be a body-soul unity in communion with other body-soul unities, preeminent among which is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So, I think in this world where we have all this stuff going on, first, we should do soul things. Right? Part of us is a soul. We should do soul things, which means we should think, like, y'all do hard things. Don't just look it up. Don't just ask ChatGPT to solve it for you. Just think. Reason. I don't care whether it's a math problem or a science question or like trying to figure out what Plato and Aristotle mean by matter and form or even whether it's just, I don't understand in Les Mis why Javert felt that he was irredeemable. Like, solve that problem. Talk about that. Think about it. Don't go look it up. Do soul things. Think, solve, read good books. Pray, receive the sacraments, do soul things, but also do body things. And here I mean, like literally build with your hands, dig in the dirt, go outside, be in the real world. Don't live in the digital world because it's not real. again, I'm not saying all of it's bad. I keep giving this caveat because I don't want you to like stone me and drive me out of here and like all Jake did was say everything's bad. That's not what I mean. But I do mean in a world that is increasingly digital, do body things, right? Get out, be in the real world. And doing body things means receiving the sacraments. It's a theme here, Father, because it's good, right? Right? Because they're body things too. They're not just soul things. The church is so smart in giving us a sacramental church 2,000 years ago to be able to see this far ahead to say, actually, that's really important. You can't just do it online. You need to receive the Eucharist. You need to hear the words of the priest in the confessional. Sacrament things are body things as much as they're soul things. I will give you one challenge. I know this is going to seem hard, but feel free to go home and like negotiate with yourself. See if you can take all of your devices and turn them off every day for 12 hours. No, this is while you're sleeping. But I'm going to 12 hours. I don't care when that is. Is it 10 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock in the morning? For me, I turn them off after dinner, and I don't get them out until I've had said my prayers and had my breakfast. Right? 12 hours. Can you do that? Can you be without devices for 12 hours, including your sleeping time? And to bookend those with prayer. Right? To say, it goes down, now I have evening prayer. I wake up, I have morning prayer. Right? I think it was Father Larry Richards said something like, no Bible, no bed, no Bible, no breakfast. Something like that, right? So that's my challenge for you. All right, so we're trying to be more human, so we're gonna do soul things, we're gonna do body things, and then finally we have to do communion things. And here it means, like first, like be with each other, like actually be with each other. This is not being with each other. This is different, right? I'm not saying it's not real in and of itself, right? But it's different. Be with each other. When young men want to date my daughters, I think I might have said this last year. So if you were here last year, forgive the repetitiveness. But when young men want to date my daughters, I tell them three things. Number one is that they have to hold the door for my daughter because she's a lady and she deserves it, and he's a gentleman and he's obligated to. And that starts with the car door, so you should do that. Number two, I tell them to leave their cell phone in the car if they have one. To sit at that table at dinner with my daughter, who's a real human being, with you as a real human being, and have a real conversation that's not mediated by a device. Three, I do tell them they have one job tonight, and that's to protect my daughter's virtue. And then I ask if they want details on that. And usually it's no, Mr. Tawney, no, Mr. Tawney, no, Mr. Tawney. Be with each other. But of course, if we're going to be in communion with real people, that starts with Jesus. And so here I mean going to adoration and receiving the sacraments. Right? The sacraments are what gives us the soul things, the body things, and the communion things. Is this a complete answer? No, I don't think so. Is it a good start with some good questions? I hope so. Thank you so much. Let's do it, man. Let's talk. I'm ready. What's your name? Connor. Connor.
So, given the diminishing returns of LLMs and their productivity in data centers, more data centers are being built and less is being returned, do you think we're reaching the end of AI technology? And do you think these systems are truly intelligent, or they're just the next word predictor?
The next what?
The next word predictor?
Okay.
You know what I mean by that?
I do. Let me take the second one first. I mean, the easy answer is no, they're not intelligent. That's a simple answer, and I think that it's too easy for us as a culture to brush that under the rug and say, well, they're not human. They're not really intelligent. I would be wary, if I were any of you or me, to prematurely limit the capabilities of AI. So, no, they're not intelligent. But what I don't want people to think is that, like, Jake thinks there's like some fundamental limit to the intellect that they can do, right? Which is going to get me to the first part of your question. So let me table that for a minute. The second part of that second part, you're like Aquinas. The first part, the second part of the second part, was, are they just word predictors? Well, I mean, on the one hand, of course they're word predictors, right? I want to state something, and to state, like, I don't believe this, but I want to state it from the perspective of the pundit. If I were like in the audience arguing with me, somebody might say, aren't we just word predictors? Like, isn't that what we do, right? Is we know what comes next. We know the order of language. We work by way of pattern. And the answer to the person leveling that objection is, actually, you're right in part, right? There is a way in which the neural network has modeled something, right? There is a part of the human brain that does think algorithmically. It's why we're able to do math. There's also a part of the brain that thinks very non-algorithmically. And I'm going to be really tempted here. There's a whole other talk that I give about like my proofs against the strong AI position. And so that's an interesting thing. I'll try just not to go down that road. Your first question was what? That was the harder one and the more interesting one. It was
given the diminishing returns.
the diminishing returns, yeah. Okay, look, I know enough about this stuff to get in trouble. I'm not an expert on everything that has been done in the last 5 years on this, right? So I know some things, I don't know everything. So I don't know where the recent advances are. What I do know is this. Neural networks have been around since the 60s, right? So the neural network is the thing that's the thing that underlies the large language model. It's the basic algorithm, the way things work. This is not a new thing. There's a real question about like what happened around 2016. Because what we saw was this kind of climb of these things getting better and better and better, and then they shot up. Now, I'm a math guy, so I think the growth was something like linear. I don't think it's the case that it shot up to be exponential. I think it was like a step function. Because there was a massive advancement that happened. A linear algebra problem was solved. We figured out how to unite different neural networks together. And this is why you have ChatGPT then come out, just a couple years after that. So I think it was like 16 or 18. It was somewhere in there where there was a massive development that happened. Right now, we're seeing this kind of level off, right? And it seems to be true for several reasons. One reason is lack of data centers. Another reason is seems like we've given it the data that there is to get. And the third reason is as it generates more data and we interact with it, it seems to get dumber. That might be a reflection of us, by the way. You should think about that. I don't want to speculate. I want to caution. I don't know the answer to this question. What I do know is before the late teens, we thought the same thing. And we thought you'll never get natural language. And if you did, it would be literally 100 years down the road. And then we had this massive advancement that happened. And overnight, we have natural language models. So what I don't want to predict and what I want to caution us of is, yeah, I think this is happening again, but what is the next thing? Like, what is the next advancement that takes these things to another level? We saw the same thing with the speed of chips, by the way. Because of the way that we're printing chips, the microchips, we thought Moore's law was kind of done. And then all of a sudden we figured out how to use electromagnetic waves to do it. And then it took off again, and now it seems to be leveling off again. But what seems to happen in these realms is that we have this argument every so often, and then there's just it catapults forward. So I'm a pessimist by nature, except for my eternal fate and Jesus and heaven. I'm very much an eternal optimist in that way. But with the fate of the world and humanity, I'm very much a pessimist. And so I actually believe that because of my natural pessimism, I'm hesitant to not be an optimist for AI. I actually think it's going to get a lot better than we think. I don't know when. I don't know when that next advancement is, but that's my answer. But I just want to say, that's not altogether formed. That's just how I've been thinking about this for the last couple years. So good. Let me do one more. See if there's time. What's your name?
Callista.
Callista?
Yeah.
Lovely name.
Thank you. So I've seen a lot on social media where people would talk to AI because they're lonely.
Right.
Or they would say, oh, it's just easier.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it was something in the high 20s. I don't know if you remember this, Mike, the study about young men. So it's 27, 28% of young men reported that they would rather date an AI avatar than a real young lady. My thoughts on this are, that's why we need to talk about this. If we think that this will not form us, we are not thinking carefully enough about this. It will, because it is optimized for persuasion. It is optimized to make you believe that this is a real conversation. It's optimized so that Jake Tawney starts correcting his spelling and saying, please. Why would I care? There's not much of a gap between that and then saying, yeah, look, it's giving me better answers, right? When I go to it for counsel, For psychological help, it's giving me answers, right? I think that phenomenon has been accelerated by the fact that we as a generation, I include myself and all of you in this, right? This is not Jake like old guy, like, right? I am an old guy, but like myself in this too. We've trained ourselves that even a lot of our communications with each other are through this. Well, it's not much of a gap then between a text conversation and a conversation with ChatGPT. They seem a lot alike. And so you start to feel like that thing is real, right? And then, and I keep going back to this, it is optimized for persuasion. It is not optimized for psychological health. It will give you what you want. And that's because of its nature, but it's also because of yours. You will want to hear the things you want to hear. This is a good thing, by the way. Like we are by our nature attracted to truth, right? We want to know true things. It just becomes dangerous when the source that we're seeking truth from has no concern for objective truth and just sort of caves to what it is that we think we need and want to hear. I think it's very dangerous. I think any attempt to replace any kind of counseling with ChatGPT is fundamentally dangerous. And I think it's just bad. So, I'm sorry. Happy, yay. What's your name?
Atticus.
Atticus. You were here last year?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember your name.
You proposed this idea that AI will do high-level intellectual thinking. There's a great movie with Will Smith on called I, Robot. And he's really this AI, and the AI is like conscious and can kind of make more than just generate.
Is this iRobot?
Yes, I, Robot. And so
I watch movies too.
You would say that, well, AI has replaced our thinking, our AI has replaced our higher level data, can do art, and then can you? That's the real question is, you can say that AI has replaced our way to think. Can you? Has AI replaced the way to make art? Can you, as a human being, do those things? It doesn't seem like AI is replacing our thinking, but that we've just gotten dumber or we've just stagnated.
Right, okay.
Not that AI has replaced us and is the better man and has a stronger will, but that we have a weaker will, that we are possessed in nature to not be thinkers, to not think, to not desire. I mean, you could ask, you mentioned Aristotle, Plato, I could question AI and say, well, tell me the form and the essence, or tell me the allegory of the cave, and it would say, well, it would explain it, but it wouldn't be in the cave. It wouldn't walk out to see good or to see truth.
Yeah.
It would be in the cave. And so a lot of people, I would say, are possessive in the cave, and AI is really not just a thing, it's like the projection on the wall. That our lower thinking has really stagnated our ideas, our thoughts, our culture, humanities, the things we enjoy. And I wouldn't say that AI has replaced us, but it's replaced us because we're the weaker link.
We're the weaker what?
We're the weaker link.
Did you say link?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the chain of idea and intellect, we've stagnated.
Yeah.
And then who's picking it up?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there was a lot there. Thank you, Atticus. That was really good. You gave me a lot to think about. Let me just say two things real quick, except they won't be quick. I told Father like 20 minutes. It was like 37 or something. Without getting too technical, Alan Turing is from back in the early 1900s. So like AI goes back before there were computers, right? I mean, Alan Turing was thinking about this. And Alan Turing developed what he called the Turing test for AI. It says like, if this happens, then you know you have actual intelligence. Now, I want to like go on record, especially because I'm being videotaped. I don't think that's a good test, right? But I'm willing to go along with it for a little bit, just for the sake of discussion, right? So I think there are lots of reasons why just passing the Turing test does not mean that you have actual intelligence. But let's put that to the side, and because I think it's relevant to your point. The Turing test was this: if you have two things that you're interacting with. So like back in the day it was screens, but you could almost now think of it like a robot, like a robot that looks like a human, right? Whatever it is. So one of them is AI and the other one is human. And you are allowed to interact with both of them as much as you want and ask any kind of questions. And after a reasonable amount of time, if you can't tell the difference, now we have intelligence. Okay. Now, again, I just want to go on record. I think it's a bad definition of humanity. It's a bad definition of intelligence. But it's related to your point. Because, Atticus, I think people for the longest time thought the way that we would pass the Turing test is to get computers better. And I think what has happened is we're getting pretty close to passing the Turing test, but it's gone like this. I think that's true, and that's back to my first point. The use of technology will form you, right? I give this whole talk on, like, again, why I think that the strong AI position is untenable, and why I think intelligence is fundamentally different than algorithm. But in there, I make this point, that we might pass the Turing test because of this. And I give two examples of this, right? One is the dialogue from Romeo and Juliet, right? Romeo, oh Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? And we kind of read through that together. And the other is a modern text thread between a young lady and a young man that's like, hey, yo, you have a GF? And it's like, but guys, that's easier to fake than Shakespeare. And then I give an art version of this, and I put up a picture of Caravaggio, and I say, look, like, I think AI will get to the point where it can fake this stuff, right? But let's be honest, that's a little bit harder to fake than some art that we have now, and the screen flips, and there's a black rectangle. And it looks like a blank slide, and the slide zooms out, and there's 3 people at a museum looking at a painting that's a black rectangle. And it turns out that's easier to fake with AI than a Caravaggio painting, right? And so my point in all of this is we may be actually passing the Turing test because AI has gotten better, but because of our use of various technologies, we've actually gotten worse. Now, again, I want to be careful. I actually think AI will get even better than that. I'm a terrified optimist of AI's capabilities in some ways, right? If we're the weak link, I think we have become weaker, but I don't think that's because of our nature. It is in our nature to find meaning. It is in our nature to be fundamentally creative, sub-creative, and that's not in the nature of algorithm. And again, I think I'll stop there on that question, because there is, that could be a whole other half hour on the nature of intelligence. So thank you for that, Atticus. What's your name? Natalie.
So I'm an artist. So I was wondering if you think that AI has a place in art, whether it's good or bad at it.
Why am I pausing? I've tried hard tonight to, except for a few things like counseling, to not totally cross the line of saying bad AI, bad AI. I think we should be very, very careful. Again, I want to go back to that. One of the things I mentioned at the very beginning of the talk. If you're asking me, is there something that AI can do right now for you as an artist that will be a good? That answer seems to be obviously yes. You would probably know what that is better than I would, right? Again, even in writing, like I can feed an essay, it can tell me everything that's wrong with it, and it can make it better. That seems to be a good. So I am presuming that's true for the artist. My concern is, as an artist, if you continue to do that over and over again, what is that doing to your power of aesthetic judgments as you start to trust what it's giving you? What is that doing to your techniques as you're outsourcing some of that, right? I don't know that answer, but I do know that technology will replace what it automates. So what are you asking it to automate, and how often are you doing that? Because the more often you do that, the more often it will replace what it automates. I skirted your question successfully. Where are we on time? 53? Do we go to 8, or what do you want to do? Let's do one or two more. In the back, what's your name?
Sam.
Sam.
Now, what about the idea eventually that the internet will become so full of generative AI slop, effectively, things that are not true, not inherently real, that the internet becomes unusable and becomes impossible to kind of find truth on the internet?
Yeah, this is related to your question, which is sort of what are the limits of the AI algorithm? Now, in this first question, we talked about like the limits on the database servers, the limits on speed, right? This is another limit, right? Which is as the internet starts to get populated with AI data, and as that data starts to feed back into the algorithms, do we just get increasing the amount of garbage to the point where there's no truth out there, to the point where AI can't discern the truth and can't give you truth in something, right? I'm going to give you two answers to this. I'm pretty confident one of the two things will happen, but I don't know which one. One is we won't know the difference because we helped AI produce that stuff and told it it was true. We allowed ourselves to be persuaded. So we just won't know. The other is there may be advances in AI that can take care of that. Because again, what we saw was this massive takeoff. We saw a quick drop because of some hallucinations that were happening. Some of that seemed to get better. Now it's just kind of a climb that seems slow and linear. I don't think we're very good at predicting long term yet, because it's so new, the success of these algorithms and what the next iteration of it is, right? So I think one of those two things will happen. I don't see a future where the internet is so full of slop and so unusable and so all of us give it up. I hope for that future, but I don't see that happening. I see one of the two things, and it's probably a blend of the two, where we have dulled our own sense of truth and are willing to just, I think we're already seeing that, by the way. I think we're seeing a lot of people continue to propagate things that are just patently false, and they're happy to believe it because, again, these algorithms are optimized for persuasion. One more, way in the back.
I was just going to ask that.
What's your name?
Richard.
Richard.
Because you connected AI to the printing press. And when the printing press came out, there's a lot of people who were just printing stuff that was completely false. And nobody knew
Right.
what was true, what was false. Like people like Whitewood, who was just like, they can translate their own Bibles without proper education. And then their Bibles ended up having like thousands and thousands of errors.
Yep.
Anyway, so.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, great. Is it quick?
Yeah.
This has got to be the last one.
Yes.
Name?
Topher.
Topher.
You got kind of in your generation, you guys have seen a lot of technological.
Did you just say my generation? Thanks, buddy.
You guys have seen like.
Yeah.
You've seen it from like a floppy disk turned to a CD.
Keep going, buddy. It's a little more rope.
I don't know. It's just how is this different from any of the other?
Right. Great. Yeah, it's a great question. So the question was, my generation goes back to the dinosaurs, and I'm paraphrasing, and we've seen lots of advancements from the wheel through the floppy disk. How is this different? Actually, Topher, I'm giving you a hard time. It's a good question. At the risk of just repeating something I said, because I know I talk fast, I think there are two things that make this different. One is, and again, I'm happy to be corrected on this, I think it is the first technology, I'm going to say three things that make it different. It is the first technology that does not allow us to communicate, but it's the first technology we communicate with. Right? And so it is replacing, in some ways, a fundamental aspect of humanity, which is the ability to communicate back with me. And so I'm replacing the other human, which is why I think, by the way, we have people going there for counseling, right? I wasn't going to floppy disk for counseling, right? Certainly wasn't going to the wheel for counseling. So that's one thing that makes it different. I said three. The second thing that makes it different is it is optimized to replace something central of what it means to be human. And again, I think that was true in small ways of some computer programs, right? But I think this is true in a widespread way that we haven't seen before. I will also say three, which is where a little bit of my doomsday starts coming out. This is the first technology we've developed where we don't understand how it works. That's true. It is if you think, it is word matching, right? It's a pattern recognition. But if you think that the programmer can explain to you why ChatGPT gave you that answer by tracing through an algorithm, that is not how they work. We don't understand why it's giving you those words. It is too deep down in the neural network for us to understand. We actually don't get it. We don't understand how these things work, and that seems to me to cause at least some caution, right? So I think those three things do make it different from any technology we've seen. So, folks, I really do appreciate this. You're such a gracious audience. I'm more than happy to hang out. Do you want to close us in prayer? Yeah. That's great.